now commencing the Mesechas Biכורים, which is the last Mesechas of Seder Zroim. It can be asked if Biכורים means the first fruit, why is it mentioned last? And the Rambam explains that Seder Zroim deals first with produce from the ground, and we deal with subjects such as Kilayim, Shvius, Trumas, Maasros, and once we've finished dealing with the vegetation of the land, we move from there to the subject of fruits from trees. And there are two Masechtas dealing with that. One is Orlo and one is Biכורים. The Rambam says that Orlo was chosen to be placed first because it occurs first in the Torah, and Biכורים comes later in Parshas Kisovo. In fact, you will find that Biכורים is mentioned in Mishpatim and in Kisiso, as well as in Kisovo. However, what is meant is that the major dinim relating to the Parsha of Biכורים are all in Kisovo. There are just one pasuk in Mishpatim, one pasuk in Kisiso, and there's another pasuk in Parshas Korach. But the main dinim of relating to Parshas Biכורים are actually found at great length in Kisovo, and therefore the Mishnah has decided to say Orlo first. I suppose it's also possible that Orlo is mentioned first because it is first in time. The first produce of the fruits, trees, is forbidden for the first 3 years, and then Biכורים can only be brought thereafter. So from a point of view of a chronological situation, the Biכורים are the last. Therefore, having finished Orlo, we are ready to start Mesechas Biכורים. It's also interesting that Biכורים is a particularly important from the point of view of learning midas, learning how to behave. It represents the midah of recognizing that everything comes from Hashem, that having worked so hard on your produce to produce something for your own profit, the first thing you do is give it to Hashem. In fact, that is one of the explanations as to why you will not find a letter Samach in the whole of the Parshas Biכורים. In Parshas Kisovo you will find every other letter, but you will not find the Samach. The Baal HaTurim points this out and says it's because Samach represents 60, and the shear, which is not actually given from the Torah, and we know there's no shear from Biכורים because the Peah is Eiladram Shelam Shear, Peah Biכורים Ryan. Biכורים being without a shear, though unfortunately explain that though there may be no shear from the Torah, Chachamim did make the shear of 1/60th, which is one explanation. But the other explanation, which is also to be found in the Paneach Rosa, is that the letter Samach represents the Soton, the Sitra Achra. It's the letter which the Medrash says didn't occur in the Torah before the sin of Chava, because it's a letter which is representative of misbehavior, and therefore it is omitted from the Parsha Biכורים, because a person who brings the Biכורים properly is then free from sin. So we see that Biכורים has some very important features. It's also very interesting that the word Bikurim itself comprises of letters Beis, Chof and Reish, which represent 2, 20 and 200, all the twos. The question has been asked that surely if it's the first, it should have been all the Alephs rather than all the Beises, just like a Bechor is the firstborn. But the explanation given is that a person must understand that there is something prior to himself, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Aleph, and anything in this world, even if it's the first thing in this world, is secondary, and that's why the Torah was created with the Beis of Bereshis at the beginning, according to many opinions. And the letters of Bechor, as well known, anagrammatically come to make the word Bracha. So, Bikurim is a very important Masechta, and we're going to learn about the dinim of bringing the Bikurim, and there are a number of important dinim we're going to learn about, to what produce it refers. We're going to learn it refers just to the Shiva Saminim. We're also going to learn that in the din of Bikurim, there's a din of the Hafrosha, that's the separation of the Bikurim. There's a din of Havor, that's bringing the Bikurim up to Yerushalayim. And there's a very interesting other mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of the V'higadato levincho. That's the mitzvah of, in fact, not so much V'higadato levincho, that's in the case of the Haggadah, but it's connected in many ways. The idea of the Haggadah and saying the Arami Ovi, which also occurs in the Haggadah, that's what I meant, on Pesach. There's a connection there, and that we are to make a statement about the history of Klal Yisrael. This is a very interesting mitzvah which you do not find anywhere else except in the mitzvah Bikurim. You have this mitzvah of talking and about things and making the kriya, and we're going to see that in the early Mishnayos as this inyan of the kriya, talking about the Bikurim, the parasha which have to be read. And of course there is one very serious Aveira, which would be to eat the Bikurim outside Yerushalayim. They can only be eaten by Kohanim, but they have to be eaten in the holy city. Also, the Bikurim of a special Kedushas we're going to see, very similar to Truma, but in fact even more holy than Truma in a certain way, as we are going to see, because if Truma were to become Tamea, you could then still use it, have benefit from it. The Kohen can have Hanoah from it, even though you're not allowed to eat Truma Tamea. But Bikurim which have become Tameh have no use at all, because they're very much more like Kodshim. In many ways, Bikurim are connected with the concept of Kodshim, which is a much more holy concept. Now that's the background to this Masechta we're going to start now. So that's the introduction to the Masechus Bikurim. We've explained where it occurs in the Seder Zroim and the importance of the